Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Valerie Zolezzi-Wyndham, and I'm so excited to be here for United Latina's weekly Cafecito. I hope you are all having a beautiful day, and it is my pleasure to welcome Gladys Muñoz. Welcome.
Hi, hola, happy Wednesday, everybody.
How are you doing today, Gladys?
I am good. I manifested rain and showers today, and I'm just loving it.
That's awesome. I'm so glad. We had rain here earlier, and I can see that my red flowers are already happier. So thank you for manifesting that. I am thrilled to be hosting this week's Cafecito and to be talking with you about service and your leadership journey. We are here every week, and so glad you can be here this week with us, and hope everyone in our audience will join us next week. I'm going to share a brief introduction of Gladys and then turn it over, and we're going to have a great conversation.
Great.
Gladys is dedicated to building and sustaining a healthcare foundation that ensures patient care is accessible, cost-effective, and evidence-based and gender-affirming, and that is such important work. I want to ask you first to just share a little bit about the work that you're doing right now, and then we'll get to a conversation about service and Peace Corps.
Yeah, totally. So, hola, hi, I'm Gladys Muñoz. I use she, they pronouns. I'm currently a project manager at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in the Cancer Care Equity Program, where we focus on prevention as well as the treatment of the cancer and oncology services, and supporting historically marginalized communities as well. Before that, how did I get to Boston? Well, I'm originally from Lima, Peru. My family migrated to Miami, so I grew up in South Florida for most of my life. And then I moved around. So I have lived in 5 countries. So that's how I ended up here, post Peace Corps service. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. I love it, Gladys. I'm so glad that you are here with us. And I have not been to Lima, but it is on my list of places to visit. I hear it's beautiful, and the people lovely. So I'm so excited to have some time with you.
Yeah.
When you and I were chatting in advance of this session, you said that you wanted to talk about service, and so I'm glad to start that conversation. The reason I invited you to join me for this conversation is that your work is about something that I'm really passionate about, health equity and ensuring that healthcare systems are are working respectfully, right? Building partnerships that are centered in the community and what the community needs. And so I've just been very curious to spend some time with you, and really glad for this opportunity. And so we'll start our conversation with a question about what made you want to join the Peace Corps.
Sure. So when I was attending the University of South Florida, where I majored in public health, there was a Peace Corps office there where they would connect with us undergraduate students, especially first generation students, to learn more about what is it to mean to serve, especially from the globalized context. And so throughout my undergraduate career, I was so fascinated in learning about Peace Corps and the work that is in this globalized context, especially serving communities that don't really come from your own backgrounds, and also leveraging your skills and your knowledge to support others. And so as time went on, I thought about doing Peace Corps after I finished my master's in public health degree at San Diego State, just because Peace Corps has been through many iterations in program development, and my family at the time was, to be quite honest, not the best supporters, just because they have these apprehensions of their own daughter living abroad and all of these other, underdeveloped nations. And so I think for me, it was just like, no, I need to go out there because there's people that do need that support and that help from the train to train model. And luckily I applied and I got accepted, and I lived in a Mayan village in Guatemala in the Western Highlands of a village of 10,000 people. And it was the hardest and greatest job that I've ever had. And if you're asking why, my answer is, why not? Everybody has these skills that are unique. And also representing the US we're so diverse, and I really wanted to showcase us as well.
Thank you, Gladys. And I want to welcome Ani and Leti, who are here with us, and anyone else in the room. I love what you said about, wanting to sort of change, right, who we think of as doing service, right? And so can you talk a little bit more about why that was important to you?
Yeah, of course. I think growing up, especially in the South Florida area where my family and I relied on free health services and we're uninsured, right? This was before the Affordable Care Act passed. And my work in, hopefully eradicating health inequities and disparities, that need has always been part of like my nature. And so to take that to the next level, where I wanted to showcase what knowledge, my compassion and empathy. And I think that was a great way for me because it didn't come from a, negative and egotistical background. No, it came from humility, and having cultural humility is really important, especially for folks that enter the international development sector, because we come with these ideas and preconceived notions that international work, the way the US context is not always right, and you have to work with the folks that you are supporting in that community. Yeah. Does that help? I know I went on a tangent.
No. I think that's right. I also heard you say, that it was that you were sort of running up against the perceptions of your parents, and so I'm curious, like what it was like when you returned, and if you feel like you've been able to sort of shift that that conversation with your parents. So tell me a little bit about that, because we're, we as immigrant children, right, have those challenging conversations sometimes to have with our parents.
Yeah, I think for my parents, they have these. My parents lived through many civil rifles in Peru, and so their experiences are not reflective of our nation, right? And so I think for them, Central America, there's these narratives, and especially mass media channels like Telemundo, Univision, that there's death, gangs. And so when I originally applied for this, they did not want me to go to Guatemala because those are their own preconceived notions. And I was like, no, I think in service, they got used to it because I communicated with them every day, just like any BIPOC Latinx parent out there. You have to give them a WhatsApp message to show them you're alive. And also, I think what was different is that my mother got to visit me, and she was like, "Oh, I know where you live. I know what this is. You can communicate. I'm not as worried about you anymore." I think after service, my parents are like, "Oh, you're in another country again? What a surprise." Or my parents are more understanding and empathetic. And I think the biggest takeaway is that my Spanish dialect has changed because, as we all know, our Spanish accents or tones are different depending on where you grew up. So, I went from Peruvian Spanish to South Florida, Cuban, Puerto Rican Spanish to living in California, where it's very Tex-Mex, right? And then I went to Guatemala, where it's Central America, and now I'm in Boston, where it's a hub of different Spanish dialects. And so I think that's the beauty thing. My parents like, your Spanish sounds different, but it's fine. So, but I think overall it takes time and it's adjusting for them to let their only daughter go be in this, town and do service work. And all they didn't mind it anymore. It took time.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like there's a lesson on empathy for everyone, right? For you to have with your parents, for them to have, for us to have with each other, right? And with people in countries that we hear about, right? As problem spaces. And so maybe talk a little bit about, you talked about the importance of empathy. Like what does that look like in action?
Yeah, of course. So I think empathy stems from a lot of cultural humility. So coming into Peace Corps, I knew that I'm privileged beyond words, especially in a community that you're helping out. A lot of folks I know the people that I serve, it was a lot of lessons learned, especially how in the US we are in this hamster wheel of productivity. And if there's a deadline, you have to do it by then. Whereas when you're working with communities that you're empowering them and leading them for change, it doesn't always work that way. And so empathy is understanding, like, where are you going to meet someone and actually understand how their day-to-day is life. So I'll give you an example. So during my Peace Corps service, I really wanted to do an activity towards the end of the school year. So something to keep in mind, the school year in Guatemala has changed. So it's February through December, but when I was in service, it was January through October. And so I really wanted to do an event in September. And I realized I couldn't do it because that's when some of the kids would go to the banana factories and plantations where they have to help out, cosechar and pick up bananas because that's their way of income, right? And so they would miss a lot of school during certain things. And I'm like, well, I can't really do any community events because they are leaving school. And it turns out that these kids would repeat grades again, right? And this is just my own personal observations. It's not reflective of a community. I just want to be mindful of that. However, it shocked me a lot that, like, okay, using my empathy, knowledge, and skills and integrating with the community, when can I actually do this event? Doesn't work for me, that works for them. Because if this part of the school year is important for their farming, agricultural harvesting, where can I support them then? And I turned out, it has to be during the beginning of the school year, because as things roll out, children might move, they might migrate, things might happen. So that empathy to me is an evolving, ever learning skill.
Thank you. And it also sounds like you're talking about something all of us can do better, which is to listen, right? To listen and to be willing to change our plan, right? We are on this productivity wheel, right? Or feeling like we create a plan and we fail if we don't stay on course. And sometimes failing is staying on. Sometimes you fail when you stay on course, because then if you're not doing something that's going to work for your constituents, you might be on schedule, you might feel like you're on track to your metrics, but the outcomes aren't going to be what you want. And so I think that's a really important lesson, especially in your work today, I'm imagining.
Oh yeah, especially right now, we're working with the Merrimack Valley region. For those who do not know, the northern part of Massachusetts, there is a historically marginalized area that we're focusing on preventative cancer screenings. So we're trying to engage in community awareness. And right now there is a current political systemic in the healthcare lens right now. And we are trying as a group, how do we meet our community partners to engage with them and also supporting them too, right? The huge change. But it's also coming from a humble lens, because yes, I come from an institution that has resources and we can leverage those. However, how can we support them too, right? And it's bi-directional as well. And I love it. It's really fun. Like this summer, for Lawrence, Massachusetts, we've been doing some farmers markets, and it's so fun engaging with the community and talking about cancer care prevention. It's just fun. So if you're in Lawrence, Massachusetts, hopefully to see you out there in the farmers markets.
Oh, that's awesome. And Gladys, I have a great colleague here in Worcester, Maya Rojas, who works at UMass
Cool.
Medical School, who is also doing a lot of thinking about food security and chronic disease management. So I'm already thinking I'm going to connect the two of you offline.
Yes.
And thinking about sort of food security and fresh foods. So I'll put you in touch when we hang up. So I want to hear a little bit more about your service and how the service itself has informed your work today.
Sure. So my role as a Peace Corps volunteer I was a Healthy Schools project coordinator. So I helped the Ministry of Education and Public Health implement a national healthy schools strategy, where the focus, there was different pillars under that strategy, but once again, you work with what the community needs are and what they would want. And so the community wanted me to help them with student health promoter groups, so similar to peer health educator groups in primary schools, and also work with the parent groups. So that was the focus. Even though it was a broad strategy, it's kind of working with what the community really needs at a time. And during that time period, a lot of the parents needed more nutrition courses. So instead of telling them, this is how you should do it, it was more of an educational collaborative approach. I'm like, okay, you're farmers, this is what your most staple foods are. How can we make another meal that's different in nutrition? And so I had, access to internet, so I can look up recipes, and I had contacts that I'd be like, oh, what is this good nutrition? And so you start making those small nutrition classes, and it was really fun because at the end, the mothers really enjoyed learning recipes, especially with banana, oatmeal, and egg. You can make a really good pancake with it, and they didn't know that because they were used to, paying for at the weekend farmers market. They would buy like flour and these boxes because that's they see as the best. But it's like, no, you have the resources and you save money, and that's good nutrition for the kids too. And then with the peer health educator groups, we co-wrote a grant with other NGOs in Guatemala, and UNICEF funded. Thank you, UNICEF. And we did a peer health educator camp for a huge department of Quiche. And we had over 50 students, and we did a lot of promotion, education, and leadership for the kids too. And I think one of the biggest lessons learned from those experiences and different projects that I under, co-leading is important, and you can't do the work to yourself. Like I was not able to do any of this work without my community partners, and rapport and relationship building takes a long time, especially for communities that, see folks that are professionals or NGOs come in and come go. And so, how Peace Corps teaches us is sustainability. So what action can I take today that it's replicable once I leave, right? And I think when you work in the international development sector, you see a lot of NGOs do that. And it's like, well, we did all we could, but now they're dependent on us. It's like, that doesn't work anymore. Like, how can you create a sustainable ecosystem so people feel empowered and have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do that? So I can safely say that today, some of the schools that I work with are still keeping those nutrition classes that I did with the mothers, right? Because unlike the US, where the school district handles school meals, over there the parent groups do. It's like the PTAs handle all the kids' meals. And so, having these nutrition classes, you're still keeping those dishes that we collaborated on part of the school meal plan. And that's a success because that's sustainability. The work keeps going on, and the kids are happy, the parents are happy, and the teachers are happy. And I think for me, sustainability is important because I can be there one day and I can't be there the next. And it's all about community empowerment too.
Yes, empowerment. And I hear you talking about the role of leader as, giving people the tools they need so that they can do the work on their own. The work is really about eliminating yourself from that space, right? Or imagining yourself not there so that others can take the reins. And that takes a lot of courage, I think.
Yeah.
And did it feel scary at all, or did you feel that ownership that was hard to give away, or is that just a natural instinct you have?
No, that's great. I think to this day, the reason things have progressed is because of finding stakeholders that do have a high influence, have knowledge, have motivation, have, they're driving. That's really helpful. And also they have influenced others. So I'll give you a good example. So my host sister, so in Guatemala, you live with host families. So I have my host sister. She's like an older prima. So she and I were not too close off in age. And she was very respected in the community. And so when I asked for help, she would help me, and others followed, right? And I think part of that consensus building and letting go, it's actually working with folks that are leaders, but also everybody has different leadership styles, right? Like I know one of my best community work partners was someone who, she wasn't as attendance was always late, right? However, when it came to delivering a charla on how to wash your hands, right? Because hand hygiene is really important. She was there and she knew exactly what to deliver, and she did it in Spanish and in her indigenous Mayan tongue, which is Quiche. And to me, that showed exactly what she needs to do. And also, she was working on her nursing degree too, on the weekend. So folks like that are there around. It's just how do you guide them to the light of like leadership and empowerment? Because we're all leaders. We just need someone to guide us for it too.
Right. And I think maybe we need to, I could imagine somebody sort of assuming, right, that if I'm late, that means something about my qualities or my responsibility, and
Mhm.
that may not be true at all, right? And so I think we also have to be open to look beyond some of these things that might prevent us from seeing, the awesomeness of somebody who could bring a lot of power, right, to whatever effort you're engaged in.
Oh, yeah, of course. And I think, once again, I think when you come from the US context of workforce development and training and education, sure, that translates well in different communities, sure. But especially when working with a group that doesn't have the resources or support, you're going to have to be flexible and adaptable and make your own resources happen. I think one of the biggest takeaway that I can speak on my Peace Corps volunteer cohort is the resource allocation, because you become resourceful when you least expect it. And so how do you, make things happen when you are tight on a budget? So for example, one of my Peace Corps friends and I did a session on how to fundraise. And that was mind-blowing for folks to say you can ask and write a letter. I was like, yeah, it's a common practice in the United States. Do you have something similar? And they're like, I'm like, well, it's kind of like a partnership, right? Like if you were to ask for a box of eggs from your local tienda, you would in return be a returning customer, something to that sort. And they're like, oh, we never thought about it that way, because you are so sometimes focused on what you see, but it's about growing mindset too. So yeah, that was a really fun workshop. The moms are very surprised. They're like, oh, we never thought about that. I'm like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it.
And so I want to close by asking you already started to share some takeaways for you.
Yeah.
When you think about the takeaways and your role now as a leader, and as a leader that will continue to grow in your profession, what are the things that you want to continue to practice that are making a big difference?
Yeah, I think learnability is really important, even though my 10 plus years of experience in healthcare and international development are really significant. It's also learning different subjects out there, right? Like AI is becoming a huge topic. What is that going to mean in the future for these NGOs abroad, or even us in the healthcare from the community lens? Like, we don't know. And also, that piece of learning is never, I think that's something I always work on. And also having patience with myself. Like, yes, I'm an Aries, by the way, Aries, as Walter Mercado would say.
I'm a Gemini.
Ooh, fun. And Aries, energy, passion, drive. It's okay to take a step back and let things go. And I think being back in the US after, being abroad for a while, it's getting accustomed to not everything works your way. You have to give space sometimes, and that's okay. So that's just my own conocimiento that I'm learning at ciencia. And I think the last thing is just continue to be humble, especially in these crazy times that we are living in, especially the political US system and all these things that are happening around the world. Just embracing that humility and recognize that, yes, I come from these backgrounds, but also how can I advocate more for my community, right? And I think that's a lifelong skill that one continues to learn, because there's different methods of advocacy too. So it's not just talking, there's different ways to go about it too.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying about, I think I hear 3 lessons that I'm going to take away. One of them is we have to be committed to continually learning, right? We need to be humble, and we need to, I think, see our own humanity and the humanity of others. And I think particularly in this moment in time, which is so polarized, we have to see the human in each other, right? And give ourselves grace, because things are hard.
It's so hard in these calles. It's hard. However, we build community, and it's like dale, as how Miami would say dale.
Is that what they say, dale? Yeah.
Yeah, my spouse is Cuban. It's like, dale, dale.
Right. I think I would say eso, right? And that's so I'm so glad you have joined us today. Part of what United Latinas is all about is creating these spaces where we can be together and elevate each other's voices and be in community. There's so many comments that are in the chat, so much excitement for some of the lessons that you've shared with us. And so we hope that that those folks who are with us today will think about joining United Latinas, join us next week for this Cafecito, look for opportunities to be in community and to find ways to elevate each other's work, and maybe to collaborate, right? Maybe there's opportunities for us to build bridges with other folks, and maybe sometimes to just offer support.
Cabal. That's for Guatemala, the lingo to say yes. Cabal, señor.
Very good. We have like a minute left before we're going to go. Is there a closing message that you want to share? Is there something you were hoping to share that I didn't ask you?
Yes, I'm going to quote my icon, Walter Mercado. Espero que tengan mucho, mucho amor and manifest. And please, I'm happy to connect too. Hit me up.
Oh, me encanta, me encanta. That is absolutely awesome. It has been such a pleasure to spend some time with you. I hope everyone who's been with us has had fun. You have great words to share with all of us. And is there a shout out to the Peace Corps if somebody was interested? Like how would
Of course, good. If anybody's interested in doing Peace Corps, it's not just 2 years. It can be 1 year for like professionals. Please reach out to me. Happy to talk about it. Also, if you're applying to be in Peace Corps and your parents are freaking out, my mom has talked to other parents, especially Latina moms. So happy to be a resource there too. So please, no tengas pena. Go for it.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's what, when I think about our community, that's what we're about, right? We want to support each other. And if we can't help, we know someone else who will. So I'm glad to offer your mom, and I'm sure she's not upset at all, but like excited at the opportunity.
Yeah. The chismes, I swear. A good chismes, not bad chismes.
That's right, the good chismes. Well, it has been a pleasure to spend some time with you, Gladys. I hope I meet you in Boston soon, because we had said we were going to do that, and we'll have to do it in September. Everyone have a beautiful day, and we'll see you for Cafecito next week.
Sounds good. Ciao, everybody.